feeling your feelings and your emotions. Yeah, you guys say, oh, I can identify them. Yeah, you're identifying them, but are you really feeling them? Even when you think you're feeling them, you might only be feeling what you think you're feeling. So that is what we are talking about today. Welcome to episode 72 of the Positivity Experience, Feeling Your Feelings. Check it out. Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 72 of the Positivity Experience. I cannot believe we're in 72. It's your girl Lori, and I'm super happy to be here today. And before I jump into it, I want to thank our new Patreon members in the gratitude level. Now listen, I'm going to tell you ahead of time, I know I'm going to jack these names up. I'm really sorry about that. I'm not really great with names unless they're super easy. In the gratitude level, we have Lilo, we have Melinda Munoz, Desiree Turiano, I hope I got that right. And at our highest level, the abundance level, we have Terry Borgard. I hope that's it. Kim Mitchell and Kimberly Machado. I want to thank you guys. And this week you guys get the radical acceptance exercise where we talk about being able to radically accept our feelings. And that is over into the Patreon. If that is something that you're interested in, there is a link down in below in the show notes, as well as on TikTok, Instagram, and my website. There is a button. You do not have to do it, but if you choose to, that's where you can find it. Every week we do some kind of an exercise and or some bonus footage based on this week's episode. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for signing up. I appreciate you guys, the amount of gratitude I have for you. I mean, I legitimately can't even put that in words, but it does go into feelings, right? I'm so excited about this topic. I'm going to really geek out on you. Okay, so I got to keep it in mind to pull it back and check. Don't get too technical in terms because you'll be like, oh my God, did I turn into a science channel? And no, I did not. But feelings is something that was a huge part of what my initial studies were, was human behavior, but also why the mind works the way it is. And then, as I started going down different areas and going into more coaching and various things like that and energy work, I really dug deeper into why we act a certain way and our feelings. And I learned that a lot when I was processing my own fears and feelings. And, when you start to realize that your feelings and your emotions, which are two different things, but your feelings and your emotions really are just products of like past stuff and that they're not even real. Your feelings and your thoughts, which we know are not real. They're just feelings, which are perceptions to you, and our emotions. And before I get into it, I did want to read something. Happy Mother's Day. I think I said that to you guys already, but it was so funny. So yesterday I went to hop in bed and I sat on a card. I was like, what? Why is there a card in my bed? No, my bed wasn't made because sometimes I don't make it. And it was a beautiful, beautiful card from my son. And, it was so funny. Like I sat with it and I let myself sit through the emotion. Like, I didn't cry. I mean, there was a little a little melancholy, but I love it for what it is. And I wanted to share it with you because it was just something that's really personal that my son did. He's 26 and he does work at the Boys and Girls Club, and him and the kids there, he sat with the kids and they did like cards, like on construction paper and coloring. So it literally says Happy Mother's Day with a heart. If you're on my Instagram, official Lori Wheeler, I know you saw it. And yeah, I think this is what made it even better. But I want to get into this and I want to kind of let this segue into the feelings part of it. And we're going to go pretty deep today on your feelings and all of that stuff. So here is what he said. When working with the kids at the Boys and Girls Club, we decided to make Mother's Day cards to show appreciation to the moms out there. I'm making this so you know how much I love and appreciate you. I know it may be tough when I'm not home, but I hope that this card can be a symbol to show you that there will always be that son growing up. The most important thing for me is making sure that you are taken care of for the future. You are a person that many would kill to be like. Not only do you take care of me and the family, but you help most people in life. You had a pretty rough upbringing, and not only am I proud of you, but I know your parents would be too. I would be nowhere close to where I am without you, always making sure that others are fine without expecting anything in return. I don't care how old I get, I will always need you. The fact that you cook, clean, help others, make YouTube videos, TikToks, etc. is so impressive. I want you to take a step back and reflect on where you are in life and where you came from. If I could be the parent that you are when I have kids, then I'd be very happy. Just be patient and great things will come your way. Thank you for all you do. Love, Bugs. Now, he goes by Bugsy. That's not his name. I didn't name him Bugs. But years ago, he loved Bugs Bunny. So it went from Bugs Bunny to Bugs, to Bugsy, to Bugs. So it's all in there. And this was such an important card for me last night when I got in bed, because I was like, wow, this is really awesome, because he knows, like, I don't expect gifts. I don't expect phone calls. I just don't expect anything, because it's not for me to expect anything from anyone. And the fact that he had come home and we went to lunch and stuff yesterday was really nice. But jumping in bed, this made me feel really good. Now, I say feel really good. This isn't something that all of a sudden I get a big head about. It isn't something that I was like, oh my God, I miss him so much. It's something that I took for what it is. I allow myself to keep this, to feel the feelings. It's probably something that I will keep with me as a good grounding anchor, because there's a lot of importance in this, but I'm not going to get attached to it. And see, that's the key, is you can't get attached to your emotions. So let's first and foremost kind of jump in and kind of talk about that. But yeah, I definitely wanted to share that with you. You guys know I share a lot of good things with you, and I like to share a lot of my personal life. Most of my personal life is out there for you anyway, but when I get things like that, I want to share them with you. And if you jumped into like, I wish my kid would send me that, no, we're going to go into the radical acceptance over on Patreon, but we are also going into acceptance on here. And you can't get into the, why couldn't things be different and changing? We're going to cover all of that. But, there's a few things when it comes to accepting, right? Is to see beyond the situation. Right? Because you are establishing, and keep in mind, your emotions are totally different than your feelings. Yep, they are two totally different things. So like your emotions are going to be rooted in 5 things: fear, joy, anger, sadness, and disgust. Right? Now, that being said, that's just what you have based on your situations that you've been in. So you and I, like I was saying earlier to someone, that we could be in the exact same situation and the exact same upbringing and have a totally different experience in life. And just because you think that your experience was one way and mine was a different way, but I'm wrong for my experience, no, that's where we're going to have you get in your lane. So let's talk about it. So your emotions, like I said, they're created in your brain, right? That's all your emotions and feelings are created, are in your brain. You are not your mind. Yes, it's in your head. Yes, it's all this stuff, but you're not your mind, right? And so you get bodily sensations, but that's based on past experiences or something that you fear. So if you're walking near a pier and you're walking along and you trip and you almost like fall in, you might get that fast heart rate, that little fear that pops in. It's just a feeling. But then if it's something that you're like, oh, okay, I'm safe now, a lot of times your body will start to recover from it. Right? Or if you're in the middle of something, you might be like, all right, well, I got to deal with this right now. I'm in survival mode. I got to make it the way it is. You just don't want to stay in survival mode. Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the brain. And I promise, like I said, I promise not to get too technical, but we're really talking some sexy talk to me, because this is the thing that made me do part of the things that made me do what I was doing, what I do now. So your limbic system, let's talk about your limbic system. So your limbic system, it helps process emotional reactions, your fear center, that's like your amygdala. And that's the part of your brain that doesn't really get fully developed till you're about 24 if you're a guy, or 22 to 26 often, somewhere in there, right? So a lot of times you might look and go about a teenager like, why in the world would they do that? Because their amygdala isn't formed yet. You know what I mean? They're just kind of figuring it out. So, but remember that it's your amygdala and in your limbic system that's processing your emotional reactions. So if you've ever heard somebody say, you don't have emotional deregulation, right? You don't have emotional regulation. That's why something like DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, I take tons of parts of that. I did some big studies on DBT when I was originally just going to go down the DBT route. But it's great because I still get to use a lot of those philosophies and teachings in my practice now with my clients. But dialectical typically was created for people with borderline personality disorder. However, it is extremely effective for everyone because it kind of leads into radical acceptance too, right? It's actually what it is realistically. So I want to talk to you differently about these emotions, right? So where your emotions feel threatened, especially if you've had trauma or other things going on, Emotions really regulate safety, stability, and security, right? So like in my case, when I was living in a van, there was not a lot of safety, not a lot of security, and definitely not a lot of stability. So you kind of start to go like, you're kind of going to bed in a trauma response, you're waking up in a stressor response because you don't feel safe. Okay, and I'm going to just remember that van life living is going to be an anchor of what we're going to talk about, because there for a while when Dad and I were living in a van, like a kidnapper looking van, we would just park wherever he could, and then I would take showers at friends' house. Like there was just always uncertainty there. And of course I was 14 years old, right? So, and trying to go to school and trying not to smell, and oh my God, like the list is endless. So there's a lot of things that we're going to come back to that. And it is something that I use as my anchor, right? It's always good to use a trauma as a springboard for something amazing and positive, right? Now, this is where you choose, okay? Now, when you are allowing your emotions to take over you, this is where you're going. Now, mind you, this is not talking about systemic issues and global issues, though there's a level of acceptance that comes with that too. But I'm talking about personally, with like your personal life. If you're stuck in, oh my God, that's unfair, why me, why now, why couldn't this be different? You are definitely living in your ego, right? So if you go back to last week's episode, that's where we talk about ego. And you're also resisting accepting that you and only you are responsible for your feelings. No one else is responsible for your feelings, and you're not responsible for their feelings. This does not mean that actions don't happen. But actions in general, everything that happens in this world is just a situation. Quite literally, it is what it is, right? This isn't to nullify your feelings. This is definitely not to invalidate you, but I'm trying to give it to you so you can understand each situation that you face in life, right? Because think about this. You and I, and other people, we could be looking at something that we're not in, but we can empathize with the situation, but we're not there. So their feelings to it is going to be a lot stronger than our feelings, right? Because they're subjected to it. So just kind of keep that in mind, because just because you have feelings towards something, you're looking at how it's affecting you, because I mean, duh, how else are you going to look at it? And that's fine, but you have to be able to process it in order to release it. If you heard him meowing, it's because he wants to walk across the computer. No, you're not doing that. And you have to accept that. See, acceptance. You have to teach the cats these things too. So also remember that a defense mechanism is strictly autopilot. Defense mechanism is also rooted in ego, right? So ego and feelings really do go hand in hand, which is why I did them back to back. Because your ego is always about I, me, my, literally ego in Greek means I, right? So it's all about you. And I promise we can always do more of that. But like I said, I already did one. I just didn't want to do like a whole, month-long series on ego, but I will on other platforms. But because it is relative, okay? And this is where the deeper parts of your feelings and emotions come into play, right? And again, that's why radical acceptance is such a big thing. But first, you have to recognize what your feelings are. Now, this is where you got to be honest with yourself, okay? So if I say to you, hey, how do you feel if this guy almost ran you off the side of the road? You'd be like, what? I'm going to flip him off. Are you kidding me? What's wrong with him? Okay, so you say, I'm angry. Okay, angry doesn't mean anything to me. That's a describer word. It's like saying you're short. Okay, what does that mean to me? Nothing. What does it mean to you? Nothing. Because anger is always out of fear, frustration, and hurt. Always remember that. If you're angry, I'm over here in quotations, you are operating out of a place of fear, frustration, and hurt, and there's a level of ego that's there, but it's normal because you're a human being. So, but it's not about not ever being angry. It's about being angry, feeling it. Now, what does that mean? Feel it in your body. I'm angry. I feel like, I can't breathe. I'm huffing. Okay, feel that huff. Oh, my shoulders are up, I'm clenching my teeth. I just want to put somebody through the wall. I'm angry. I can feel it in my stomach. Good, feel it. See, you can't just label it and not feel it. You don't get to say I'm sad. Sad doesn't mean a damn thing to me. What the hell does that mean? Nothing. You have to be able to describe it. Now, here's where it comes tricky. You cannot victimize your feeling, okay? This isn't talking about the situations you're feeling. So you don't get to say, I'm sad because of Bob. No, you're not. Bob created he said something or he did an action, which was just a static action. You have the attachment to it, whether it be something from your past, whether you feel like you were abandoned as a child and now Bob rolled out and didn't call you. That's not Bob's responsibility. This is the deeper fact when it comes to your feelings. Because your feelings themselves, and that's why I said radical acceptance is such a big thing that I love, which we, like I said, over on Patreon, I did the, like an exercise for you guys. But it's imperative that when you're feeling your feelings, you allow to identify everything you're feeling without, here's this key, you hear me? Without pushing blame on somebody else. That is the part. Because if you're blaming others, you're not feeling your feelings. You're diverting it and putting blame on someone. It doesn't matter why you're feeling it at this moment. I'm just telling you about your feelings. So in order to process it, you have to remove the reason of the fear. Now, we're going to have to identify the fear of anger. You're going to have to identify it to label it. Facts. So you have to identify that in the first place. But you cannot say, I'm this way. It would be like me saying, well, I'm sad and stressed and in fear of finances because I lived in a van with my dad, which for so long I had this hang up on safety and security, right? I think most people have a certain level of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be like destitute, but sometimes if you've had trauma with something financially, it really rocks your root chakra, which we'll talk all about chakras. But trust me, we will, because it's like one of my favorite things too. But in your root chakra at the base, that houses your sense of security and safety. So when that is violated, especially at a younger age, at any age, but especially at a younger age where your amygdala, your limbic system, all those things aren't fully processed, you go into this weird fight or flight. So now you take that trauma, which is like a PTSD, and you say, okay, I don't want this to happen again. So now you create a fear surrounding money. So now you've given money this giant power over you. Now money, what you had feared, and what you think, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Is now fully controlling your every move. Now, what do you do in that case? Well, you got to feel and you have to understand where it came from. So you have to identify the why beneath the why beneath the why. There's always 800 whys. So a lot of times what you think the reason of why you're scared or upset or stressed, yeah, that reason is there, but is that reason just like the icing or the top of the iceberg? You know, if you see an iceberg, it's like you see the tip of it, but then underneath it's like all this giant thing. That's kind of what's happening. So you have to be clear in not blaming other people for your feelings. I know it's a tall ask, which is why it's not happening overnight. So always remember, and I know if you guys have ever been in my house or if you've seen certain things that I've posted, it is what it is everywhere, because that is true. It's not to invalidate it, but it's also not to breathe life into it. So if you take a traumatic event that you had an emotional response to, if you keep living in that, which means you're re-victimizing and re-traumatizing yourself every day by reliving it, that's never going to be your best friend. Like ever, and so you have to understand that when your brain is producing like these, like flashbacks, that's kind of what your feelings are in a weird way. This isn't like a technical term, but I'm trying to make it to where you can understand it. Realistically, they're almost like flashbacks without having flashbacks, but it's like flashback, but with feelings. So you're like, oh my God, I remember this feeling and this really sucks. Yes, but you're safe now. See, that's the key. Mindfulness, like everything else, and like I will stand by this in every podcast and every video I ever do. Mindfulness not only saved my life, it can save yours. When you can accept that you only have this moment in time, and if you look at a situation that has created an emotional or feeling response, you sit with it and you process it. And most importantly, you say, but I'm here now. I'm here now. I'm not in that van, right? I'm not under my dad. I'm not, on the corner selling drugs. I'm not there now. I'm here with you. This doesn't invalidate it, but if I hold on to this level of like, I got to hold on to this, it's not my identity. See, part of the reasons you're resisting your feelings is because it has become part of your identity. And the reality is your feelings are not your identity. When you get clear in that, remember why feelings aren't facts in the first place. They change. Your feelings change. As you grow, they change. As you cut back on the expectations of other people, they change. When you don't live in your past trauma because you allow yourself to process it and know where you are now. When you don't hold on to the, why couldn't my life be different? Why isn't my dad a better person? Why did I have to lose my mom at 14? Sure, all questions I asked myself for many years. And it got me nowhere but in heartache and stress and bad relationships and expectations and codependency. And it doesn't provide you anything positive. Now, that being said, if you pull inspiration from it and you process your feelings and you allow them to come, you better damn well believe you're going to get a lot out of it. Which is why I said to you before, if you feel, again over here in quotations, shame or guilt or embarrassment, see, when you put yourself out there and you accept what your feelings are and accept your shortcomings because they're beautiful. We all have shortcomings. That's the beautiful thing in life is we always will. Our strongest quality is also our weakest. And it just is. And think about this. When you live in your feelings and emotions, you're lacking resilience, right? You're lacking the resilience because you're telling yourself that you're this way because of said thing. Again, your feelings are always valid. But what will never happen, at least not on my channels, okay, and definitely not with my clients, is you don't get to live in that trauma and make it your identity. At no way, shape, or point is that good for you. It just isn't. And this is where you see people afraid to release that control. Because for so long, let's say 60 years, this person lived in a trauma response and defensive and always on edge and feeling as though everybody owes them something, okay? And now if you're asking them, hey, I want you to just accept your feelings. Just want you to roll with them and know you're safe now and then just live peacefully. But they're like, what? Oh my God, I don't even know what that means. And some of that is you. Some of that is somebody on the other end of this podcast right now. Is you're going, oh my God, I want to live good, but like I'm afraid to be good. That might sound weird to people, but it's way more common than you think. Sometimes when you know that you're right there at feeling better, or when you start to feel better, you go into that sabotage mode that you go, I got to do this because the other shoe's going to drop. Other shoe dropping is an absolute trauma stress response. You think you're doing yourself some giant favor. You're not. What you're trying to control is absolutely controlling you. And this goes into that feeling state. And this is why you have to allow yourself to regulate your painful emotions. See, and that's a process. Sometimes people have emotional regulation issues, which is why you have therapies, which is why you have treatments, doesn't mean that it's some lifelong sentence that you can't. See, that's the whole other thing. You can't get all catastrophic. You can't go, well, damn, I don't know how to I have emotional deregulation. I guess I'm just screwed now. No, you're not. That's some weird mindset that you're telling yourself because you think you're protecting yourself, but you're allowing yourself not to feel. So you go, okay, wow, that kind of is weird. Like, I guess I got to be vulnerable to kind of even understand it. This is you analyzing your feelings. Okay? This is you analyzing your feelings. And the biggest key to that is the present moment is all that you can control. If that has to be your mantra for the rest of your life, then let it be. Tattoo it on your forehead. Stick it on the mirror. The present moment is all that you can control. When you can do that, you're able to process your past hurts, your fears, and your feelings. See, here's an issue. Some of us, doesn't matter your age, some of us were raised to believe feelings are stupid. Your feelings aren't real. Well, they're not real, but your feelings aren't valid. Your feelings aren't important. They're important to you. But here is the thing for you to know. Your feelings aren't for everybody else to walk around on eggshells. Your feelings aren't for everybody else to kind of kowtow to you, to be like, oh, are you good today? And vice versa. Remember, anything I say to you also pertains to you. So this is the important factor of it, because you have to feel the level of safety now, knowing that you're an adult now. At least most of you on here are an adult now. And as you get older, every time you get older, you are capable and responsible for processing your feelings. Okay, so remember that anytime, if you're defensive, right? So let's say, like I did a couple TikToks and the videos that I'd done on ego. If me telling you that you live in your ego triggers you, yes, that's you living in your ego. Yep, not passive aggressive. I'll tell you that right now. Dot the I, cross the T. Yes, it's about you. And now how does that make you feel? Defensive. Okay, well, why? Because that's not a great answer, right? So you need to understand, because 90% of the times you say you're angry, then I'm like, okay, why? Well, I don't know. Well, oh, okay. Well, why do you think? I don't know. Okay, good. This is why you have to feel them. All of that false narrative that people told you that your feelings were invalid or not warranted, that's not your voices in your head anymore. Identify the voices in your head. They're not your voice. They might be society. They might be mom. They might be dad. They might be a teacher. They might be a boss. They might be an ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, ex-partner. It could be anything. It's not your voice. So why would you allow that voice to create the narrative of the puppet master of your feelings? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. And now, here's the harder pill for you to swallow. You can't have a savior complex. You can't do the God complex, where it's now suddenly your job to come in and save the world. Can't do that. See, with all of the tools I give you, my tools are here for whoever wants them. But it's not my job to make you take them, right? That's ridiculous. It's here for whoever wants it, and I'm here to help and guide when needed. But I will not allow you to go, well, this sucks and I can't do it and I'm going to give up. And no, you're not. Like, that's not a thing. And it's great to label your feelings and recognize them, but you better recognize all of them. Like, what does anger feel like to you? What does sadness feel like to you? What does fear feel like to you? But really sit with it. It's supposed to be triggering. I love when you guys get triggered, because it lets you know that you actually have the tools and the strength to get through it. You can't avoid your triggers. That's not what you do. You face them. You walk head first into the fire. That's how you get resilient. That's how a phoenix rises from the ashes. A phoenix can't rise from the ashes if it's sitting under the covers, right? Now, rumination in past is not processing. So how do you know you haven't processed your emotions? If you're ruminating on the past, if you are feeling victimed in the past, like I said, why me? This is unfair. Why is my life this way? Why couldn't it have been different? Why? Okay, that's you living in rumination, which is not processing your feelings. And in turn, especially if you're blaming of anybody else or if you're blaming your past. Again, your feelings are valid to you. But it doesn't mean that, and I'm going to tell you right now, the more you try to hold on to that, and the more you try to hold on to the trauma, and the more you try to wait for someone's accountability, you've heard me talk about this. That goes into ego. It goes into so many other things. But if you're waiting on an apology or a situation or a, hey, you're valid, or hey, you're right, to move forward, that's you living in a trapped cycle of your emotions. That's a trapped cycle of your emotions, because you're still giving somebody else power. You think, no, I'm not. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. If you're waiting on somebody to apologize or take ownership of their actions that caused your feelings and your emotions, you have literally given them the key to your entire power. You're like, here, take the key. Because this is that fear response. This is why you have to process your feelings. One of the best things we do in my line of work, and that I do with my clients, is have you feel those scary feelings. Sit with those feelings of being a 65-year-old man crying like a baby in a corner because their dad left them when they were 5 and they're just now processing their feelings. And in the meantime, they lost a couple of marriages. Them and their family are estranged because of their attitude. And now they're working on themselves. It's never too late. It's not like, oh my God, I'm too late now. No, we're not doing catastrophic thinking. You cannot do all or nothing, and you cannot do catastrophic thinking. Which is where, from the ego and the feelings, this is why they go hand in hand. Because if your ego says this person is wrong for feeling this way, you are now saying that your feelings are more important, more valid, and superior over somebody else's feelings, even if you don't understand them. That's ego. So ego and feelings do go hand in hand. And again, one of the best things I think for me is like practicing a Buddhist lifestyle, because you only ever have the present moment. So that's it. And you don't hold ill will. You feel the feelings, you process them, you release them. So you don't hold ill will, which is also why if it comes a little like messed up or, people come in kind of trolly, I just block them. I'm not even going to feed the beast. But these are the important factors for you. Your feelings are valid for you and only you. So your homework is I want you to really start to analyze how you feel. Identify it, label it. Sad. Okay, great. What does that mean? Break it down. Okay. And, there's a whole thing of radical acceptance, but first you have to label it. So I want you to get yourself in a space, pen and pad. Don't try to do it on your iPad. Don't try to do it in your notes. Pen to paper. And I want you to start analyzing what your feelings even feel like. Even old feelings of mom, old feelings of being bullied in 2nd grade, old feelings. Write them down. But here is the key, okay? You need to highlight this in your brain. Do not blame other people for your feelings. Don't be like, well, dad wouldn't have molested me, or if this girl in school wouldn't have picked on me, or if my husband would have been more. No, we are not blaming. These are your emotions to literally process. And you can't do that by pushing blame. You have to take accountability for your emotional maturity, right? And emotional maturity. And that comes from not blaming. That's a reason you could say, hey, my husband lied to me and said he didn't cheat and he did, and my feelings got hurt. No, you were hurt based on an action, which ultimately isn't even just about him stepping out with this girl. It goes deeper, and now you're really upset because you feel like this girl, what did this girl have that you didn't have? So now we see that it's really not about him at all. His actions brought up some old thought patterns about how you don't feel good about yourself. Right? And let's say you say, oh, this girl's so much skinnier. I knew he was going to go for somebody skinnier because look at me, how fat I am. So now you're going to start talking down to yourself. You're going to say because of his actions, it has highlighted how not good I am. He never once said that. That's in your head. So that's like an example, right? So that's why I said, I want you to sit with it, because that's also how you start to identify some of those locked traumas. You know how you say, well, hey, how do I get to some of those locked traumas? This is how. Because now it's only going to be effective as you are honest. So if you're not going to be honest with yourself, you're going to get a half-assed, experience out of this. But that is your homework. Identify and own your feelings alone. And it just gives you a better insight as to where you feel stuck, where you need to continue to work, what we need to continue to grow on. It is a dynamic, amazing, wonderful experience. And it's something you have to do regularly. You're not just going to do this one time and be done. You're going to have to continuously do it, right? Because that's where you have to start saying, okay, this is my reaction. I'm responsible for my reaction. This is my feeling. And when you do that, it starts to create boundaries, right? You're like, well, I don't want to feel this way. Every time I'm around this person, I feel this way. Now, you're not blaming the person. You're saying, I notice when I'm around said person or said situation, I feel this way. So you don't change them. You don't blame them. You don't call them an asshole, even though they could be. You still don't call them that. This is your responsibility now to protect your peace against whatever it is that you say keeps your feelings in a certain space. Don't try to change them. Don't even judge them. But just analyze and redirect and pivot. That is your homework. And I tell you, when you start feeling your feelings and you start owning those feelings, you start falling in love with all of them. The sadness, the fear, the frustration. You show yourself gratitude. Be kind to yourself. Love yourself. And in order to do that, you have to be uncomfortable, babes. You got to be uncomfortable. Nothing grows in the comfort zone. If you resist that, now that's ego. So make sure you go back and listen to the ego one, which is right before this one. So I love you guys. I hope you have a kick-ass week. I hope it's getting warmer where you are. And to my lovely friends in the Southern Hemisphere, I hope that it's getting a nice, beautiful fall type chill for you that you're enjoying. So I love you guys. I love each and every one of you. I am grateful for each and every one of you. You absolutely, unequivocally matter. Check it out.